Thank you very much. It is very important that we will build trust with the government, that we will build trust with the National Cyber Directorate, and trust means let's start and work together. Unfortunately, we are not going to have time for questions and answers, but I believe that the next speaker, Dr. Eitan Hadar, Managing Director of Accenture Research and Technological Labs, is going also to summarize whatever was already spoken with all the other speakers. So I will just summarize up later, and they will give the ground to my very good friend, General Dani Bren. So Dr. Eitan Hadar, please.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. So, we heard a lot of interesting things, and hopefully I can bring it all to one story around Agile security, but let me just rephrase what I catched up throughout the day and the days before. So, Yossi gave us a huge view on the cyber by design or security by design, and three very compelling elements were there: that process and business decisions and best practices are not separate part from cybersecurity. And if you don't have a modeling culture, you actually don't know where are your risks and where are your issues, and how can you really tackle something which can be monetized. And Rob basically said the same. Rob basically said that how do you really monetize the impact of cybersecurity? Well, in the case of Rob, was downtime. How can you monetize downtime? And they simulated the OT implication in a lab to explain to management what it's all about. Tom also said that the approach to have a supply chain protected, not just yourself, it's also a matter because we are in a connected environment, so we need to see everything in a holistic manner. And by the way, our own Israel Electricity Company has a product called Extra Layer, which actually does that, looks on IT and OT in a single pane of view with the processes and methodologies. So we're actually acting on that approach. Dimitri mentioned that the issue is resilience. Resilience is not just cyber, it's the impact of cyber across many elements. So the notion of detecting and deciding and constant modeling and figuring out what's the next move is also part of what we think. Max told earlier that we need to move from compliance to risk management. Basically not because we have to, because we need to, that's for sure, but what's next? How do you drive the other thing? And by the way, this morning, Bob Malka from IBM, the VP for security, said the exact same thing about focusing on risk management. Gil Shwed also said this morning that the next generation, Generation 5 and Generation 6, is in the IT-OT space, and most of the companies that are not aware of that, they're in level 2.8, if I remember the number, which is kind of application hacking, but not more than that. So how do we look on both processes from business, from IT, and don't forget our hackers, which do lateral movements. So that is the third way of looking on things. So there are complexity of business processes flows, there are the IT topology flows, and there are the actual movements that a hacker will do in order to conquer the next target, which is a fundamental pillar of what I'm going to talk about. So, Accenture, a very large company, 440,000 people strong, #1 in services in North America and in Europe. And I'm lucky to be responsible for the Accenture Labs. So we are all playing with go-karts, and that's a fun environment to invent the next integration of technologies coming from our partners and from our startup ecosystem. And I think the mention of Clarity was here before, so Clarity is a great example for that. But we are not alone even with Accenture. So we have the Accenture security business, which is 5,000 strong and the #1. And the first acquisition in Israel was Maglan. And we are very proud because they are part of our innovation, making sure that it actually sticks. There is a new business in Accenture called Industry X.0. We just stopped doing Industry 3.0, 4.0, 5.0. It just ruined the marketing thing, changing the numbers, just put an X, and then you're good to go. Because it's always new. What is the next integration? What is the next new? It's always new. It's changing so fast and we need to be in the front. And you cannot really do that, as Yossi mentioned, without understanding the business. What is the business? What is the change? What is the buying? Which comes from the management consulting. What is your organizational climate? You're going to change business processes. You're going to tell someone, like Yossi said, say no to the CEO. Now, I'm not sure if it really works, but can you really resist the CEO? It worked once when you said that to the CEO. Okay. You need to be able to push back, because how do you do that? It's a change management issue. That's problematic. So let's see what we need to rethink our foundation in terms of really what we want to do is situational awareness. To know what's going to happen before, that's the defense, resilience, what's going now under attack, and what happened, that's the forensic for next time. And to look at it in a holistic manner. So Noble is seeing every element, and they are really thinking about the next change, what's going to happen. So it's a lot of risk analysis on the next change. You cannot just go and change and then hope. It's not a debug, try, crash, DevOps mode. You cannot do DevOps on OT. So, a research that was done over 4,600 executives across the globe in 19 industries, and it goes like this.
Companies report that attacks on their businesses more than doubled since 2017, when 1 in 3 caused considerable damage. Now, organizations are gaining ground with only 1 in 8 getting through. What's changed? Our research reveals 5 key findings. Security teams have made great progress defending against 87% of attacks, but the basics, including internal threats, still need attention. The pressure grows big, yet organizations need 2 to 3 more years to embed cyber resilience into the business. Over that time, 90% plan to increase spending. Breakthrough technologies such as AI and automation will be critical, but only 40% are investing in them to evolve their security programs. Confidence remains high, but a proactive approach is needed, with 71% saying they still don't know how or when cyber attacks will affect them. And while the C-suite is treating security as a business risk, authorizing 32% of cybersecurity budgets, the CISO's role needs to adapt to integrate security into the fabric of the organization. Learn more, including 5 key steps to cyber resilience, in our study, the 2018 State of Cyber Resilience.
So for sure you can download it from the website, but we also have a Hebrew version in Anashim Machshavim, PC Magazine, Israel Defense, Calcalist, and thank our marketing department for making sure that the summary in Hebrew is out there so you can reach out and see. So several takeaways from that research. The 2 major things that all the customers, 4,600, are saying, most of them saying that these are the 2 elements that you need to invest in order to start your journey. Security monitoring, that's the sensing part that we heard from resilience guys. That's the monitoring collection, knowing where you are. And analyze the threat. Know where you want to go. Where you are, where you want to go. But the realistically is that unlike Noble and unlike our electrical company, most of the companies don't know what assets they have and what are the risks. In order to know what actually changes, you can either have a very rigid modeling environment that you cannot change without modeling and adding, or a very good monitoring and discovery technology that if someone by chance change something, it will automatically appear, and either under compliance or not under compliance, that's the next step. But you need to be very risk adverse. So the relative KPIs for business management are going this way. What are the major questions, and thus what are the major answers that technology should provide you when you're dealing with security monitoring? It's basically, first and foremost, have visibility. Customers don't know what they have. Make the proper network segmentation, as Tom mentioned. But also not just what is a network. So there are 3 types of networks. The IT network, obviously. The business network, as Yossi mentioned, that's the second thing, because business processes cross networks. And still a network, conceptual, but a network. And from our point of view, as hackers, that Maglan team will focus on, is really about how a hacker operates in your environment. So, it's a thieves and robbers game. To be the best cop, you need to think like a thief. And that's what we're trying to do all the time. Then you need to figure out what you need to do in business economics terms. So what will be done to reduce the risk? So I can suffer 400, it was 500,000 to 4 million, something like that. So I can suffer 500,000, but I really cannot suffer 2 million. So what do I need to do to just get my level to 500? Because we know that we cannot remove the risk, we can just manage it. And what will be the best way, because we also heard from Max that it actually costs. So what will be the best way to remedy, to remove or move from 2 million to 500,000 with the minimal investment, which is good enough? Because the next day we have another threat. So those are the business questions that we need to answer, and this is the technology that we're basically saying that we need to have. So focus on your process and focus on risk management, but not for the sake of compliance. You're already doing that because otherwise you cannot sell energy in the case of, big companies. But also think about continuous improvement and continuous risk assessment. And if you follow the people path, you will get so far. So you need automation for data collection, for monitoring, for really understanding. And yes, it needs to be with AI because it's a matter of scale, big data, and it's a matter of classification, probability. I think there's something going on, I'm not really sure. So the world of complex event processing is great, like Splunk, but it's not enough. You need to get further out there and classify the events because the amount of data is just staggering. You need to focus on what is important. So constantly check the health of your business process as a P&L, as a profit and loss manager. Each manager is responsible for their business. It's not the CISO's fault. The CISO is the execution for many things. He's driving the business, but he cannot take the fall. In Israel, we have the notion in Hebrew statement is blame tashimu tashin gimel. We need to make sure that it's actually being presented to the manager that can make the additional investments for their own business. And there is cross dependencies between business processes. So, technology-wise, we have a stack of 4 pillars. And I think Max says collect, and then he said decide. It's kind of following the same approach. So discover, that's a very complex monitoring. And for example, Clarity and Big AD, those are companies that really give the data to have a very good monitoring and collection of information, the discovery part. But then when you have this modeling, as Yossi mentioned, now you have the entire configuration management database for the IT guys here, for everything that exists, including the 3 types of networks I mentioned, the IT network, the dependency network segmentation, the business process network, what affects what, and the lateral movement network, which is how the hackers think. And now decide where I'm going to put my money. That's the what-if kind of scenario, very dumb maybe, but very complex in terms of computation, so it's a heavy computation task. What can I do to reduce my 40% risk to 30% risk in that oil rig versus I'm willing to suffer in other areas? Automation, back again, acting, changing everything that you can change if it's within the rules. Any new bot that you would like to insert, you need to add a new rule, as Yossi mentioned. So, the concept is that it's a holistic approach. You need to have a cultural climate to support what you're doing and constant change management because we are going to change how people thinking. You need to find the relevant use cases. Yossi's business is not Rob's business. They know their use cases, but in those set of use cases, you need to pick up the one that you need to start the journey with. And you can do that using ideation, like design thinking workshops, and simulation, like CyberRange. Not CyberRange for the techie guys, which most of us are doing, but CyberRange the CEO. Get the CEO and the legal and the finance in a room to figure out what an escalation does and how it's going to impact your business. And for every decision they made, change the attack mode and change the simulation. Make them feel, as Rob did with the OT, make them feel the impact of cybersecurity. And constantly monitor, analyze, and refine. So, and I'm going to conclude, evolve the role of the CISO. It's a business decision coming forward. It's not any longer how we segment network. That's for the experts. But the CISO needs to justify, in financial terms, the investments. Strong foundation. Your core assets, the most important thing, and gradually build on. Pressure test, cyber resilience, cyber range. test your system. Don't talk about that, validate it. Business and processes and methodologies are great, but we need to ensure that they work. Use the latest technologies. Some will work, some won't, but you evolve over time. And use intelligence data for proactive analysis of your threat and what is the next mission. Holistic approach. So it's man and machine, human plus machine. As said in the morning from IBM, augmented intelligence, we call that humans per machine. Yes, automation, but where it matters, not everything needs to be replaced. Holistic view to prevent business disruption. I'm not saying taking down systems, just degrading the performance. And make the entire work of Agile security agile. So, we are Labbies, and we are happy to collaborate with all the startup ecosystem as we do. We are working with clients and partners to co-innovate in finding the next wave of technologies, and we are embracing any employee that would like to play in our playground. So thank you for your time, and I hope that's a good conclusion for the next lectures. Thank you very much.